everybody. Good morning. Thank you for being here on this rainy day. I know it's also Steeler Sunday, so we appreciate you coming in. My name is Shana Baker. I am a partner and the Director of Public Relations and Social Media at an advertising agency here in Pittsburgh, located in the South Side. And this is Beth Choyke. She's going to be co-presenting with me today on finding your brand champions, brand advocacy via social media. Beth is a senior account executive on my team over at Gatesman plus Dave. And when we talk about social there, specifically, we talk about conversation and the importance of one conversation and how much of an impact that can have on telling your brand story. It can change everything, for the positive or, in some instances, for the negative. It's really about the story that you want to tell and your involvement with the audience that you're seeking to connect with. I think Sheryl Sandberg said it best when she talked about the evolution of the web. And she said the 1990s were all about browsing, and the 2000s were all about searching. And it really became kind of the wonder years of the web. And that's because it was all about information gathering, and it was anonymous. How many people remember Instant Messenger? I mean, that was the key to communication back then. You could create an entire personality and nobody would know whether that was you or whether it wasn't. It was anonymous. But change is inevitable, and what came along with that is the evolution of the web becoming the social web. And it's about real people, real connections, and real relationships, most important. And it happens all in real time. So how can this work for you? What's the impact that you can make? How is it going to have an influence that's going to be actionable, that's going to get results for what you're trying to accomplish? And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Brand advocacy, and more specifically, those brand champions. And the most important thing here is that can't be faked. It can't be bought. It's something that has to be real. It has to be authentic. You have to be willing to give the keys over to the audience. You have to be willing to allow people to shape that conversation and to extend it and mold it into what they want it to be. Let the community take control. And that can be a difficult thing for some people. Whoopsie. Each of us has our own personal message shield. So what that means, and this is actually, I think, a fantastic visual that Ogilvy Social created, and it talks about kind of that halo effect of how messages can really resonate with people individually. And this probably isn't any surprise to the folks that are in the room right now, but friends and family, that third-party validation, that peer-to-peer review is really what is going to permeate that shield and be the most meaningful. The average user, this used to be about 130, we're now at 229 connections to discover, to consider, to share, to review, to rave about things, or to kind of go off the handle about them. So understanding what that means to you and how you can work and have that to be of your benefit. These people are impactful. They're changing the dynamic of the way that we communicate. And their friends and their family, that peer review that we're talking about, are the ones that are helping to expand this more than ever. So why does it matter? It matters for a couple of obvious reasons. One, 4 out of 5 internet users are actively engaged on social. This is probably only going to continue to go up. Across a snapshot of 10 major global markets, social networks reach 3/4 of those internet users. We spend nearly 80% of our online time engaging with social media. The last thing here is who's driving that growth. It's no longer college students, it's no longer 18 to 24-year-olds, it's 55 up. Those are the people that are really starting to expand social networking. Search engines. Social cues such as Twitter shares, Facebook likes, and social bookmarking is really having a huge influence on search engine optimization. Oftentimes it's user-generated content that is going to get the most recognition when it comes to your search results. So being aware of what's said is critical. And then lastly, the way that we engage with the media. There was a fantastic series yesterday to talk about the way that traditional media is utilizing social media. That's important. So myth or fact? big time social media influencers are the most attractive to marketers. Do you guys think that's true or false? It's Sunday, I'll give it to you. It's a myth. Why wouldn't people want to engage with some of the most influential people out there? Beth, you want to explain that a little bit?
So when brands look at the types of influencers that they have the opportunity to connect with, they want to consider the audience outreach that's connected to each of those individual users. With that, it's the average Joe that brands actually have more of an impact with connecting. Those average Joes have a higher influence on their friends and family, and through those interactions actually have the opportunity to spark more actions out of those simple connections. We know that 92% of online users are trustful of people who recommend products from their friends or family. So marketers can tap into those insights and really utilize and leverage the average Joe with their connections.
So I want to talk specifically about a couple of different advocacy profiles that are associated with personalities. The primary reason people recommend a product is because they had a good experience with it. There's nothing earth-shattering there. But what is surprising is the desire, when you have that positive experience, is the willingness and the desire to share that out more frequently, to educate your family, your friends, your networks. And users are really amplifying that word of mouth. It's increasing engagement for brands. And lastly, brand advocates, as far as a profile, typically it's millennials, and there can be some discussion about what qualifies as a millennial. When we say that in this presentation, we're referring to between 18 and 34. Types of brand advocates. We've put this into 3 different types of personality descriptors and how those people can be used to your advantage. Beth?
So we talk about brand advocates. It's something that's kind of that rare breed. You know, of the people that are already connected online social, only 6% of the total fan base can be considered a loyal brand advocate. But those people who are considered advocates, they are so unique, and we don't want to categorize them just as brand advocate. They have actual personalities. So the first one we're going to go over is Jack Spendahl. He is uber connected. He was that type of person that you really wanted to be friends with when you were younger. It takes about 2 times longer to get to the destination on where you're going because he knows everyone, he wants to stop and chat with everyone. He's just really an enthusiastic being. He really makes his voice vocal on his social networks, and overall is just a fun-loving person. Kara knows that she's the rave reviewer. She was that student in class that would take 2 hours to write a review about your teacher. She wants to try experiences for herself. So if she's scouring Yelp or Urban Spoon and maybe sees a bad restaurant review, she wants to approach that restaurant and be open-minded. She wants to check it out for herself. So when she goes and she says, okay, I remember that review, it wasn't terrible, I'm going to try it, I'm going to see what I think for myself. As soon as she leaves that experience, she's writing about it, whether she's on mobile or she goes home to her computer. She's quick and wants to get it all over with. James Lyklander, he's the rapid reposter. He's the type of person that always had that first new toy when you were younger, and he's actually pretty generous. He would let you have a turn before you even had a chance to. He had a chance to use it. With that, he likes to share things on social. So whether he's tweeting about new products, he's tweeting about new songs, anything of that nature, he's that guy that actually has that keen sense of what's pretty worthy content and shares that with his network.
So Quaker Steak and Lube is a client of ours that we've had within our agency for about 4 years now, and we're really going to use them as our story defined today. So where did we begin when it came to Quaker Steak and Lube and social media? 4 years ago they said, we're hearing this new thing, we want to be involved with social. Everybody wanted to be involved with social, but we don't know where to begin. So a big part of that was an opportunity to kind of step back and first understand what people were saying about them, what the sentiment, what the tonality, what the review was on behalf of the consumer. So we're going to share with you a quick video that talks about our first foray into social with the lube. And hopefully this works.
companies spend countless dollars getting their customers to talk. But what do you do when they're already talking? Thousands of people are talking about Quaker Steak and Lube online. The only problem? The lube wasn't talking back. How do you join the conversation? Step 1. We help launch the Triple Atomic Wing Sauce.
Sorry, guys.
How do you join the conversation? Step 1. We help launch the Triple Atomic Wing Sauce with a social media campaign. This new sauce is over 3 times hotter than any sauce the lube has ever made. So we ask consumers to try it and show us that they were tough enough to handle the heat. Step 2. The lube fans created 30-second videos and uploaded them to our site as part of the Triple Atomic Tough Video Challenge. This promotion increased Lube's website traffic by 200% and garnered over 28,800 YouTube views. But that was just the start. The campaign led to Ad Age and Entrepreneur Magazine recognizing and ranking the Lube as one of the 2011 top social media brands. And over the last year, thanks to our social media efforts, the Lube has gained more than 332,000 new fans, which helped the chain expand into new markets and created new ambassadors for the brand. Huh, that's a lot of all-you-can-eat wings.
I apologize, my screen looks like it wasn't at the right ratio. But when we started with the lube, the biggest thing that I talked about there was being able to understand what the audience wanted. And really, the key takeaway with that is that people were talking about Quaker Steak and Lube, but they weren't engaged, they weren't talking back. We were hearing over and over again this desire to really bring the heat from the restaurant and being able to identify that personality, those heat seekers, as one of the largest areas of opportunity for the lube was something that we tapped into and had tremendous results with. But coming out of that success, as agency people, we're always thinking, okay, we're only as good as our last campaign and that one's over, so now what are we going to do? How are we going to possibly keep this conversation going? And it takes time. Social media is not something, and brand advocacy, these brand champions, it's not something that is going to be a short fix. It's not something that can happen overnight. There's a lot of experimentation that goes in, and some campaigns are successful, others are not as successful, but being able to execute that trial and error and being able to measure the outputs, the outtakes, the outcomes of the different campaigns and the different endeavors that you undertake is important. But there's things that the best brands in social media all have in common, and the first is the ability to be transparent, to allow good as well as negative conversations to exist, to be able to respond to both of them in real time. Be transparent, be authentic in your social media. Let users shape that expansion. Don't come in and say, I'm going to build this community and expect that people are all going to show up. You need to let them tell you how to expand and what they want, what's the value that they are looking for when it comes to what you're trying to provide. Regularly stream new content for engagement. Have a robust content strategy. Be able to build out editorial calendars that are going to keep conversation moving forward, that are going to allow the audience to participate. As long as there is a reason for them to come back, they will. But you have to keep it interesting, and that's sometimes a lot harder than what it seems. Give users a reason to connect, to share, and ask those questions. So make sure that you're putting your brand second and putting your audience first. As an advertising agency, that was a new model to be able to wrap our heads on. Instead of that broadcast messaging, we had to be able to establish that give and take between Quaker Steak and Lube and what our audience wanted. So the evolution, we started with the Triple Atomic Tough Challenge, which was all about the heat seeker and giving them a platform to share their experience and voice their excitement over the lube. We then transitioned into a campaign called Lube Nation Vacation, and that was all about expansion. Quaker Steak and Lube is a restaurant that is vastly becoming one of the largest and most expansive franchisees across the country. They're as far west as Denver, Colorado. They're down in Texas as well, and just probably about 6 short years ago, they only had about 20 locations, most notably the one in Sharon, Pennsylvania. Has everybody in the room been to a Quaker Steak and Lube, or do you know Quaker Steak and Lube? Okay, good. We tried football promotion. One of their big competitors is Buffalo Wild Wings. Buffalo Wild Wings owns sports. Quaker Steak and Lube said, we want to see if we can get some of that audience and get them engaged and make them excited about our place as a destination to go for college game day or for football Sunday. This is one of those examples of trial and error where things didn't exactly go as planned, but again, being able to identify with the audience, understand their needs, and adapt out of it. Same thing when it came to March Madness with the NCAA tournament. Sports and this audience are not things that necessarily coincide. These people want to know about deals. These people want to know about heat. They want to know about sauce flavors, and they want to feel empowered to engage with the brand. They want to have influence that's going to lead to operational changes. So some of these campaigns here that we're showing towards the end were about addressing the menu. Sauce Boss was last spring? Last spring, and it gave our audience a chance to create the next great sauce for the restaurant. It also allowed them to bring back some of the things that were taken off of the menu. So it really gave our fan base, our consumers, the opportunity to engage in a meaningful way, in a way that mattered most to them, because they were having an operational impact on the business. All of this culminated to our most recent campaign that we called the Mayor of Lube Nation. It was timed, obviously, with the political season. This just wrapped a couple of weeks ago, and really, it gave us an opportunity to crown the ultimate fan and make them a part of Quaker Steak and Lube's business as they fought for the title of mayor.
I'll take it away then. With Mayor of Lube Nation, we don't think that we could have started with this campaign right off the beginning. Using a Triple Atomic Tough 2-3 years ago was a way for us to gauge our audience's level of participation. So we were able to come up with something right off the bat that would test our fans, see how far we would be willing to push them, see what type of content that they would be willing to engage. With that, after each competition, we were able to up the ante a little bit more, ask for a little bit more. And with that, Mayor of Lube Nation, we found that our fans are so empowered. They want to share their voice. They want to have an impact on operations. They feel comfortable enough with the brand that they call themselves the most loyal fans. So tapping into that knowledge, saying, all right, we want to give you guys the keys to the kingdom. You have the opportunity to be the Mayor of Lube Nation. So with that, we were able to integrate a couple different components of the campaign, but up front, really utilizing some of the different technologies on the YouTube channel, through email, through Twitter, to tease it. Get people really excited, rally them up, tell them that this is coming. You have the opportunity to be the first in the know, to receive the special messaging on behalf of the Lube to sign up for this competition. In addition, we also were able to get the CEO involved. If you take a look at some of the different statistics, there's about 14% of CEOs who are actively involved in social media. And some of them don't do it so great, but John Longstreet, you'll see right here, he's the CEO of Quaker Steak and Lube. He's actually the former mayor of Plano, Texas, so we thought it would be a good tie-in for him to expose his voice to Lube Nation and get him introduced to our loyal fan base. So we set him up with a Twitter account, actively wrote some scripts for videos where he was able to give feedback, live feedback on the campaigns as it ran. So he was able to start building that voice, and then further, after this competition is over, build on that, have a blog, and really be involved with Lube Nation.
It was an opportunity the first time for him to really get exposed to customers in a meaningful way, in a way that typically, as Beth said, if only 14% of CEOs are actively engaged, John is kind of the exception to the rule, and there were times where he was exposed to customers that were less than thrilled about an experience that they may have had at Quaker Steak and Lube, but to be able to connect directly with the CEO and understand and realize that he had a dog in that race and that he was concerned and he wanted to respond and he wanted to make sure that people were addressed, I think was one of the most critical pieces of this campaign, that exposure for him.
And he's got a great personality for it too. I mean, he truly cares. His background is in hospitality. He went to Cornell for that. and he truly cares about what people have to say about his brand. So having that direct line of communication for him is something that didn't scare him. It was something that he wanted to be a big priority moving forward. So this is an example of the teaser period. All of this lived on Facebook in our custom applications. We were excited when Timeline rolled out because we had more space to play in on the application. So with that, we were able to collect email bases, and this, our fan base on email specifically has increased a good chunk since this competition. So the Loop is always looking to increase that, so that was good for them. In addition, we had some really cool technology on the Facebook app. This is the landing page to get into it, but we had a campaign kit where people were able to go in there and create their own profile picture generator. So it was almost like an InDesign on Facebook. You guys should check it out. We're going to leave that up for quite some time, but it allowed people to customize their own avatar in a way that gave them the opportunity to express their campaign avenue.
And I think one other thing that's important about this part of the campaign was that even if individuals didn't want to participate or put their name in the hat for actually the title of mayor, it gave an extended amount of people an opportunity to still be engaged. So we weren't excluding anyone. Even if you didn't want to apply, you could still participate by utilizing the campaign kit and creating your own, as Beth mentioned, avatar, as well as video, as well as cover photo design. So we didn't exclude anybody, which was important.
And also too, the just shareability factor. Shannon mentioned, 229 friends per person. Just having that opportunity to use a visual to social network and increase that fan base is a good thing as well. So we had, I would say, about 300 submissions total. I'm looking at Chelsea down here. Chelsea's an integral part of our team as well. 300 submissions, and we narrowed down to the top 10 candidates. From there, we asked weekly questions. So based off of their weekly questions to the top 10 candidates, we picked a weekly winner. So we knew that there would probably be a couple star candidates, but we wanted to make sure that there was a way to involve all 10 candidates throughout the whole 5-week span where we were asking them to submit their answers to those specific questions. So we would ask them, what's your favorite sauce and why? How many Lube locations have you visited? Things like that. And then we would crown weekly winners. But what's important here is once those top 10 candidates made their way into the kind of final running of the campaign is that we saw an increase of supporters from their own personal networks. So you can see right here, we had Ken, he was one of the mayor candidates. He did a really good job of rallying and supporting and getting those people to share the messaging on his behalf as well. People taking use of the campaign kit creator to share their campaign platforms. In addition, integrating new technology to the campaign. So we have Pinterest. We wanted to see if people would go with other avenues to support the campaign. And also on the back end, we wanted to try and see if people would actually use Pinterest. So we didn't say that you have to make one. We wanted to garner the level of interest for it to see if that's something that maybe Quaker Steak and Lube can use for future purposes. So that's one thing that we wanted to utilize that for.
And to Beth's point there too, I'm sure a lot of you in the room work with people or are friends with people who every new social technology that comes out, they rush to be a part of. And we deal with that with Quaker Steak and Lube quite a bit, where every time there's a new platform or a new technology that emerges, they want to be a part of it. And that curiosity is awesome. We love that they want to explore those and test them out. But just because there's a new technology doesn't mean that it's always right for a particular brand. And for us, being able to measure the level of involvement on Pinterest. As Beth mentioned, we use a lot of Facebook. This campaign was based in Facebook, but being able to test out the influence factor on Twitter, on Pinterest, on Foursquare, on a lot of the different social technologies that are out there, and letting the community respond back to us and say, hey, this isn't something I'm so keen to participate in. Let's keep it to Facebook, or let's keep it to YouTube, whatever it may be.
So we're wrapping down to the final couple of weeks of the campaign here. We actually picked our final 2 contestants. You saw his picture on there twice earlier. His name is Ken, and then we also had Shane Waters as a secondary campaign finalist. So with that, the final leg of the race was an actual Twitter debate where we had our CEO log in and moderate the discussions. So he would send out the questions and we would have the contestants actually answer in real time. So it was interesting to see kind of that chat back and forth. And it was the first time that the Loop actually used real-time chat where we had other people engaged. Throughout the whole competition, we had about 400 new followers, and we think that a lot of this can be contributed to, making our presence known on Twitter and through the debate. What was important was that we were able to include the hashtag in there. We had not only the contestants participate, their friends and family, but we also had some reporters in there. So that's something that's important as well. The timeliness of it was pretty great because of all, the heat of the debates that were going on. And really just a way to kind of tap into the election period and alleviate some of that consternation that goes along with that. So poking some fun at it.
And Beth mentioned we had about 400 new followers on Twitter. I think one thing that's important to note too is it's not necessarily the quantity of followers that you have, but it's the quality of them. So having 400 people that are actively engaged, that are providing content, that are responding back and sharing the type of information that we're putting out there is, I think, a really important distinction, quality versus quantity.
So after the debate, we opened up a voting period, and Ken Rumbaugh led by a ton of votes. He was able to rally the troops and also have an impact with general members of what we like to call Loop Nation. He is the definition of a brand advocate. He has been very vocal on all of our properties, and since the competition has really increased his conversations as well. So we wanted to profile our mayor candidate. He is uber connected. He's the Jack Spendahl. What's interesting about him is his actual experience. So we talked about brand advocates coming from someone who had a good experience with the brand. That's where a majority of brand advocates come from, which, as Shannon mentioned, is not too surprising. But speaking specifically about Ken, he hated chicken wings. But he went to Quaker Steak and Lube, and his experience there changed that all. So that's one of the ways that he's a brand advocate. Specifically, Ken kind of breaks the mold for the demographic. He just turned 36, so he's close to that millennial, but he breaks the mold there. He's also an educator. He can't tell his friends and family enough about Quaker Steak and Lube. And then the next slide will show his engagement since the competition. One of the things that we found out during the debate was the fact that he had been to 26 locations. He lives in Ohio, but he said that he had plans to travel to, there's about 50 Quaker Steaks and Lubes. He said that he had plans to travel to all of them. So what's interesting is you can see that he's tracking. He said that he was going to Florida, and on the tracker in there, he surely made his way down there. In addition, we didn't ask him to do this, but he's sure proud of it. Work and education, he deems himself the mayor of Loop Nation. His campaign platform was, "I'll be your wingman." So not only is he interacting still, but the Loop has plans for him. One of the things that we believe is important is that once a campaign is over, we don't want to lose that engagement. So we always try and think of ways to keep whatever winners we have involved, whether it's checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, making sure that they're getting into the restaurant still. But with our mayor, we really want to leverage this. And as Shannon mentioned, Quaker Steak and Lube is rapidly expanding, and they just opened up a couple different restaurants in Texas. And for this one, Plano, we were thinking of cool ways to bring Quaker Steak and Lube out there. And Quaker Steak and Lube is very close to its billionth wing. So that day, we're going to have our mayor actually eat the billionth wing in Texas to help bring that tradition over to the new state. And we have many plans involved with him. So he's on our radar for the future and definitely going to be involved in our campaigns moving forward.
So if we just summarize the key takeaways from our discussion today, first and foremost, be interesting and be consistent. And interesting is a tough thing to be. Being able to plan out your content in a way that's going to add value to the brand that you're representing, but also it's going to add value to that target audience. It's putting that target audience first. Set fewer rules and ask more questions. This is something that people can struggle with, being able to let go and being able to allow a community to really control the dialogue that you're having. We live in an age where that provides remarkable brand intelligence for people to be able to see in real time kind of the feedback, the following, what's working, what's not. It's opening the door and really allowing brands to see so much more than what they ever were able to. It's about conversation and influence, not control. So being able to generate and join conversations that are already existing and allow influence in there, and actionable influence more importantly. Things that are going to provide solutions to problems, new ways to engage, new offerings or new operational impacts that perhaps hadn't been addressed before. Listen, learn, and adapt. As Beth and I have shared today, we've gone through a lot of different campaigns with Quaker Steak and Lube. Some of them are successful, some of them are less successful, but being able to react to what's working and being able to respond to our audience and what their needs are. Empowering your community. When we first started this with the Triple Atomic Tough Challenge, we didn't really know how our audience was going to continue to engage with us because the first time the results were just staggering. So being able to fulfill that and move forward and being able to allow our community to not just engage with us, but to really be empowered. And the Mayor of Lube Nation was about that. We've engaged with our audience, we've activated our audience, and now let's really empower them to be able to be change agents and to be brand ambassadors on our behalf. And with Ken being our newly appointed Mayor of Lube Nation, we have, as Beth mentioned, big plans for him. He's going to continue to really be a part of the Quaker Steak and Lube brand, and if all goes according to plan, he'll be somebody that we'll be able to use for many years down the road by way of feedback, by way of sounding boards, new opportunities for marketing, as well as new opportunities for operations at Quaker Steak and Lube. So with that, we conclude. Does anybody have questions for us? Yes, ma'am.
How do you do the measurement of how effective that voice was? I know there's analytics on Facebook, but how can you tell how many people actually used your stuff for the avatar, that type of thing?
Sure. We have different software that we track with, so whether we're using kind of Salesforce suites or whether we are doing good old-fashioned hunting and gathering, I still think there's value to being able to get in there and really dig on behalf of our clients. Those are some of the ways that we measured that. We also measured it with the feedback that the different general managers were having at a location level to be able to have their servers in there and talking about the campaign, as well as being able to quantify the number of people that were coming into the restaurants and were excited about the campaign. One of the things that was interesting for us is this was the first, with more than 50 locations, we have several different franchise owners, and this was really one of the first campaigns that the individual franchisees really got involved, and they really embraced this because there was a sense of pride. They wanted one of their local customers to be deemed the mayor because that demonstrated that on an individual ownership basis, they were doing something right, to have such allegiance and have such loyalty with their audience. So those were some of the soft metrics that we used. And then in addition, it was the number of videos that we had, the number of shares. You know, we can look at impressions, but really interactions are so much more meaningful. So being able to tabulate those on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, which were the big three properties that we used. Another thing going forward is, Beth mentioned John Longstreet, the CEO. John has been wanting for a very long time to have a blog, and we've been saying to John, you can have a blog, but who are you going to be talking to, and what's the audience interest level going to be? So we really wanted to use the mayor to introduce him to a larger audience, and we were successful in that in a number of ways. One, based off of just his Twitter following and the number of engagement and followers that he was able to establish, but two, the relationship that he's had with the media. There are several key publications in the world of restaurants. Nation's Restaurant News is probably the biggest. We scheduled a CEO lunch chat through Twitter with John during the campaign, which was covered by a number of journalists from Nation's Restaurant News. And even Stuart Elliott from the New York Times actually wrote a piece on this campaign for us. So we were wildly excited about that as well, to be able to measure it that way as a demonstration of true empowerment of a customer base. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate your time this morning, and best of luck to you in your future endeavors in social.